Welcome back to the Win with Dice podcast, a podcast featuring members of the Win with Dice team. I'm Calvin, and I'm joined here by Ramon.
Hey guys, this is your first time listening to the Boom with Dice podcast. This is a podcast all about tabletop RPGs. Calvin and I like to take a casual approach to the hobby. So, we like to talk about the games that we run, the games that we play, and the cool, wonderful people that we get to experience the hobby with. If this is your first time hearing about tabletop RPGs, what are you doing? Go find yourself a table and go have some fun. And if you are a player at someone's table, maybe it's your turn to GM for your group.
Indeed. Now this week, we are taking a look at some new Starfinder stuff. In particular, we're taking a look at the last couple of Starfinder 2E field tests, which are like smaller versions of playtest documents that are being thrown out there for people to get their hands on right away and start testing like certain ancestries or certain classes. We are going to get into those and, just discuss some of the new things that are coming up within the game and some things that are, I guess, old parts of the game or old parts of Pathfinder even. Additionally, before we get started, I just want to say that there's probably a bit of a new audience out there since we are on some new platforms. So I just want to say hello to everybody out there and welcome to the show. Hopefully this is something that you enjoy and will stick around with us as we talk about more tabletop RPG topics. But before we get into all the fun stuff today, we have to get to the most important part of the show, the Win with Dice Weekly GM Tip of the Week.
Yes, the Win with Dice Weekly GM Tip of the Week, brought to you by Calvin. Thanks, Calvin.
All right. So, something that was, I guess, in my mind as I'm thinking about stuff that I've run recently is how much I enjoyed some of the downtime stuff that happens, some of the in-between stuff in games. Things that aren't necessarily tied to the main plot, but are just like characters spending time together, and sometimes they just hang out and bake cookies together, and it makes somebody feel good when they're feeling pretty rough. We can get into some details on that later when we recap those sessions, but I think there's a lot of value in those smaller moments. I think the more you have those in between the larger either the combats or the social encounters, the more dramatic moments, I think that's what gives more weight to them. I think that's what helps you, from both sides of the GM screen, really, to care about those characters more.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I think I sent the meme to our one of our Pathfinder friend groups or play groups, where it was the scene, the final scene from Gurren Lagann, where like fucking Simone is like punching the anti-spiral, and it was just like, this NPC called me hot, and like, at the end of the campaign, it's like, why are you beating up the bad guy? It's like, because this NPC called me hot. That is actually like the one thing I think about a lot, is getting the players invested into the world and with the characters that they interact with a lot, right? I mean, like, it's one thing to care about the world being destroyed, but it's another thing caring about, oh my god, my friends are gonna get hurt, right? That to me is like more of a driving heroic thing that players latch onto, and like, it's a lot, I guess, easier for the players to get on board with the whole saving the world plan if your world is filled with their friends, right?
Yeah, exactly. I know I get drawn into that pretty easily, so I like to try to take advantage of it myself when I can.
Yeah, there's a boat out there with a bunch of hot boys that Calvin cares about a lot.
Indeed.
Yeah, there you go, folks. There's your tip of the week. Really kind of double down on that slice of life interludes in your fun, cool, high octane action adventure role playing game.
Yeah. All right. So, as you all out there may already know, Starfinder 2nd Edition is incoming. It's outside your door. It's on the way. It's right there right now. No, it is, as far as I know, it will be launching in 2025 with a full playtest launching later this year, 2024. The playtest itself, I believe, will be launching sometime in the summer, and you can get it either the PDF or you can purchase a paperback version of it. But until that moment, what they have been doing is they've been releasing, or Paizo, I should say, has been releasing field test documents that cover like either a certain class or a certain specific ancestry related to the game. So you can test those out, piece by piece. So we talked about the first two already, featuring the Soldier and the Mystic class. And we're going to get into talking about the two most recent ones, Field Test 3, which features the Android and the Vesk, and then Field Test 4, which features the Envoy class. So yeah, let's just hop right in, and I'm going to start with Field Test 3, and I wanted to start with the Vesk, just because that's sort of a Starfinder staple, really.
Interesting. I thought you would have just done it in alphabetical order the way they're put in the book, but yeah, all right, let's go with the Vesk, because if people don't know, the Vesks are the big, strong lizard people that you see in like space fantasy places, or I guess stories.
And they have that very classic like that Empire trope. They have like this honorable background, as much as they are a warmongering reptilian people as they are described. They also have a lot of faith in their own strength and might, as it were.
Yeah, a little bit more. A little bit less Krogan, a little bit more, what's that race from Star Trek? I don't watch Star Trek, but, you know, the dudes with the foreheads and the weird knife thing that they carry around.
It is very much that, and ooh boy, I wish I remembered it.
I want to say Klingon, but is that Klingon? I don't know. It's probably the pointy. Oh yeah, it is the Klingons. Yes. Yes.
I think we both need to watch more Star Trek, I guess.
Yeah, I know. It's been on my list of things to check out. I'm like, my older sister is a big Star Trek nerd, but I just never got into it for some reason. I don't know.
Maybe after this we'll give it a try. But yeah, the Vesk, coming from the Veskarium Empire. And I feel like a lot of what goes into their background is really well represented in the mechanics that they have. But in addition, you know, because Starfinder 2nd Edition, it's made to be compatible with Pathfinder 2nd Edition. So as I'm looking at these things, I'm also seeing like, you know, I could at this moment, I could just take the playtest Vesk here and hop into a Pathfinder game with it. They even have like, you know, ancestry feats up to level 17, so I could probably play through pretty much a whole character with this, which is kind of tempting to do. I might just do like a playtest or something on its own. But I did want to get into some specific stuff that kind of stood out to me when I was looking through this document. One particular thing is, actually it's in both of them, the beliefs section, which kind of replaces the alignment and religion section that was like present in other Pathfinder stuff for remaster reasons. And it has their edicts and anathema, things, you know, that they either try to live up to or that they try to avoid. But as far as Vesk go, they have like, they start off with 10 HP. They're pretty comparable to like orcs and dwarves that already exist in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And they have some variations and heritages that are brought over from 1st Edition, but now they've been changed because those originally were mostly like ability score variations. But now there's more of a focus on giving each thing a different ability. So one thing that was the Venom Thought Vesk, which were sort of portrayed as having, you know, they were very psychically capable. They had like psychic abilities. But the original one was more of a focus on ability score changes, which gave higher wisdom and charisma. This one instead, especially because, you know, ability scores in Pathfinder 2nd Edition at first level can be pretty variable. This one instead gives you daze as an innate cantrip that you just have.
Ooh. That's kind of cool. You just mind blast somebody. Like, for free.
Brain blast.
Nice. Yeah, brain blast.
I feel like it makes more sense for what it's trying to represent than, you know, just like simple stat adjustments. Similarly, like there's the, what's it called? The Warblood, which again was in Starfinder 1st Edition, and it had bonuses to your strength and dexterity, with a minus in charisma, I think it was. But now it's like you can take a couple different options of like adding physical features to yourself, like new claws or like a spiked tail or something, so you could do like physical attacks with just your body. And yeah, I feel like these changes, they kind of, I like the idea of leaning more into each thing has a unique ability versus each thing just has like a stat adjustment.
Yeah, because then you could like, you'd get into the weeds of like, well, I'm going to take this one because it gives me the stat boost I need for like, for that class I need, right? Like that kind of like old school kind of design.
Yeah, like I think it's more interesting, and I feel like it would be more interesting for new players as well, because it's easier to communicate. Like you have the ability to daze someone versus here are some number changes that you might not understand the context of yet.
Yeah, and like I don't know, I'm down for more you just get a cool thing abilities than just like your stats get better. I think that's more evocative anyway, and it allows you to mix and match. I don't know. I'm always a big fan of like I'm gonna be the cool tank guy, but also I can shoot laser beams or something out of my eyes when I kind of feel like it. You know what I mean? Like that kind of like every character is a little bit unique kind of feel versus like there's one best way of doing it. Like I can totally see the Venom Thought Vesk still being like a soldier or something like that, but maybe they just want to, use the daze spell once in a while to smack somebody up the head, or like they lose all their guns so they can't shoot their guns, so what are they gonna do? Get them with the mind blast, right?
Yeah, I get it's it brings in that variation that I think is more interesting. So yeah, there are like a bunch of ancestry feats for this. I didn't want to go through every single one, so I just kind of made notes of some that I found interesting. One that I saw that kind of stood out immediately was the Fearless feat, which is that any success against a fear effect is treated as a crit, and it's very similar to the Fighter ability, which, it does a similar thing, but that is unlocked at level 3. So, basically, if you're playing as a Vesk, you just get the ability to treat your successes against fear higher from first level. Although I will say that the Bravery feat for fighters, it also reduces the frightened condition faster.
I mean, it's synergistic, I guess. It's like if you ever wanted to like play a Vesk in Pathfinder 2nd edition, then you could still be a fighter and still benefit from it. You just no one's gonna intimidate you at all, right? Like even if they did, they're gonna be like, wait a minute, actually, I'm a big scary lizard man. I don't need to be afraid of anything.
Yeah, just immediately turn that around. Yeah, it was just that interesting like mix of things that made me feel like I really wanted to mix some Starfinder with Pathfinder stuff. One other thing is the Menacing Snarl, which is again related to fear, but after you frighten another creature with your typical intimidation check, you increase the amount they are frightened by 1 when you're successful on it. And I was thinking, because we saw in the Soldier class, the other document that they put out, the first one, there's a new condition that comes with Starfinder, the Suppress condition, where you have like a minus on your attack roll and a minus on your speed. And I was thinking that these could actually pair well, because something that's frightened has a penalty on its rolls, and if it's suppressed, it also has a penalty on its rolls. And these can stack because they're different types of penalties. So if you successfully frighten someone, they essentially have like a -3 at least on their attack roll.
Whoa, that's like really significant.
Yeah, like, if you're like able to suppress them as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. That means that like, a big intimidating Vesk, suppressing you, and he's big and scary, can really mess somebody up that isn't just like I do the damage. I think I like that a lot. I think there's like something to be said with like I need abilities that just do the more damage, but having like a kind of a controller type of abilities for like a soldier class, that sounds way cool. And like obviously like pairing it with a Vesk, that's like the first thing I think of is just like how do I get like basically just make Vesk Arnold Schwarzenegger, get to the chopper, like like that kind of thing.
Exactly. And again, it's like I like the idea of just mixing the benefits of these two games. But continuing on from using and avoiding fear, with Terrifying Bravado at 5th level, when you critically save versus fear, or something critically fails against you, you can like immediately demoralize them as a reaction, just like, laugh at their failed attempts to bully you.
Oh man, that's so good. This should be in Pathfinder. I was like, I just want these things to be in Pathfinder.
I think it's really cool how a lot of its feats sort of lean into, this sense of bravery, this sense of laughing in the face of fear, that I feel like it's communicating like Vesk culture in that way. And also just, intimidating someone as a reaction when they mess up sounds very funny. And another one last one I wanted to look at was the Overcome Shame. which is triggered whenever you critically miss a melee or ranged strike. And then the next time you attempt to strike in this, like at the same target on your current turn, you roll twice and you keep the higher results. But if this also fails, then you, at that point, you become overwhelmed with the shame of your failure, and you give yourself the off-guard condition until the end of your next turn.
That's so funny. It's just like, okay, I can't mess up this time. No! Like, you're just devastated. Like, that's so funny. I love that you just hype yourself up. You're like, okay, I'm gonna get it this time. You just fail, and then you're like, no. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, if you fail when you're rolling with advantage, you're gonna feel pretty rough.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, big guy. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I really like that one for the failure condition of it. The success I think is pretty good, but you know, it'd be really funny to fail that. And yeah, there's a lot of really interesting stuff with the Vesk. There's some regenerative blood stuff that I thought was cool, but I didn't want to like write down every single feat. I just thought it was interesting how many of them were related to like the fear effects.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool because like they are like just supposed to be big and intimidating and imposing, right? So it kind of makes sense, and like that's like their whole culture is to be big and intimidating and imposing. And if you're not doing that, then like, you know, you're not drinking the Vex Kool-Aid, right? Like you're counterculture man. So I kind of get it. I think it's really cool and really evocative of the theme of being a big lizard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, I like a lot of the stuff here. I think it would be really cool to play a Vesk character in a Pathfinder game, just to see how that mixes things up. Because like not all of the stuff in Starfinder, and we'll see that in other things, but not all of it is tech related, right? Like there is a specific tech tag for certain things, but not all of it has to be a science fantasy like situation. Like some of it can just be brought into a fantasy Pathfinder game.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I think that's one of the more interesting things about second edition Starfinder. But speaking of, so this was another thing that I thought was interesting too, I should say. The Android for Starfinder, it is, I guess, obviously very similar to the one that exists for Pathfinder 2nd Edition already. It's got the same HP, same size, speed, ability score, like boosts and flaws, and the same like additional abilities, like your low light vision and all that sort of stuff. The only real difference, at least rules as written, is in the assumed languages that you would have, and I think that's mostly just because of like the setting and timeline sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But overall, like I did want to like compare the two of them, and I kind of saw that for the most part they were largely the same. But again, the main differences is in the heritages, where things sort of like you can split yourself into different types of androids. So with Pathfinder 2nd Edition, there are different types of androids you can be, and those in Starfinder are sort of under the same label of Ancient Android, which has its own like subtypes that are all the same as the ones that exist in Pathfinder currently. And I feel like in a lot of ways, the Starfinder Android comes off as like the Pathfinder one, but better.
like it's just the future.
Yeah.
So time has passed and things got better. Like technology has improved. That's so funny.
Pretty much, because you seem to have, like, for the most part, I didn't list like each and every single feat, but you seem to have mostly the same feat options. I saw there were like there was a bunch in the Pathfinder one that also existed on Starfinder, but the Starfinder one also had new feats and new heritage options. So I'm kind of wondering, like, is the Pathfinder Android even going to get like a full remaster or anything like that? I don't know if it needs one because it's here in Starfinder.
Yeah, it may just be like, just use this instead. Like,
I mean, it would make sense. But yeah, there were some other feats I was looking at. Again, for the most part, I think you basically have all of the Pathfinder Android feats. One I was looking at though, and it's more of a Starfinder thing because it is specifically technology related. But when you roll a crit against a creature that has the tech trait, it becomes glitching. And glitching is a condition that was present in the first field test, but we didn't really look at it too much because there wasn't really a whole lot that it would work with at the time. But I went back and I read about it, and it feels pretty rough, actually. So glitching is essentially like when you have the glitching trait, and it only applies to any like object or creature with the tech trait on it. You have to make, whenever you do an action as the like either at the start of the combat round with the creature, or when you're doing something with the object, you make a DC 10 flat check. You just roll a D20 against a DC of 10 to see if the thing functions normally. So if you succeed on that check, it functions normally. If you critically succeed, it reduces the glitching value by 1. But if you fail, it applies a penalty to whatever you're doing equal to the glitching value. And if you critically fail, as a creature you're stunned, or as an object it's like non-functional. And as far as I could tell, the only way to reduce the glitching value is to roll a nat 20 on that d20 roll. Because otherwise, you're just basically glitching until... I assume there's some sort of repair that you're able to do, but if that exists, I didn't see it. But otherwise, it's just like you're permanently glitching until you can roll a nat 20 on a die.
I'm assuming that's probably only at combat, or is it like... just perpetual everything you try and do or that thing tries to do?
Well, it does specify like combat rounds when it comes to being glitching as a creature, so that might be a combat only thing, although I'm not really sure when it comes to like objects.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I mean, it sounds like a robotic status effect specifically. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, like I'm still assuming there's gonna be some way to repair it, but otherwise, like it feels like, imagine you spent the whole combat just glitched. Every time you want to do something, you gotta make that roll. And
I'm sure that there's you know, abilities or like items or something like that gets rid of it.
Yeah, I mean, it would be cool if there was like a cleric ability to remove glitch.
Maybe like it's the Techmancer. I forget what it's called. Maybe it's one of their things too.
Technomancer.
Technomancer, which is like just get rid of the glitch. It's fine. Reset. Control Alt Delete. Like.
And then there was another one, synthetic speech, and it's basically just like you get the spell Speak with Computers as an innate spell. And I'm just looking at this, and I keep thinking, like, I feel like, again, you know, this is the only version of Android you need. Because it has stuff that works for Pathfinder and for Starfinder.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, there might be some stuff that they can lean into that's more of like the fantasy realm. Like maybe it's like more of the magical sense of playing like a Tin Man, right? You know, maybe especially like I would say like elemental wise, I feel like that would be a cool place for them to be at, right? Like maybe they can link into more elemental planes or something like that. Like kind of riffing off of the recent release of the elemental
Rage of Elements, but
Rage of Elements, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that actually does sound really cool. Like I guess like in fairness, like I didn't go through every single Android feat to see if they're all one-to-one there. So you're right, there might be some more fantasy-based stuff in there. It's just like from my immediate glance, it feels like, you know, Starfinder Android has like both worlds attached to it. Like it has the fantasy and it has the Starfinder stuff. So I don't know, maybe there will be some update in the future, or there already exists something that the Pathfinder one has that the Starfinder one doesn't.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, stuff is pretty cool. I mean, I just was using advanced targeting systems where you get to have like once per day you just get Sure Strike, which is pretty dope, I think. you just lock on, right? Like
you zoom, enhance, you lock on. Yeah, that one is in Pathfinder as well. Yeah, I think it's just I think it's like worded differently, but it is.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Well, I think it's fine. We just have one definitive edition. I think that's totally fair to have like this class over both systems because, like, again, they are interchangeable in a lot of aspects, right?
Oh, although it could be, I don't know how you'd work it into a campaign where you have someone who exists as a Pathfinder android and then they also play as a Starfinder android. I don't know how that would work, but maybe it could be figured out.
I mean, I think it. I don't know. It doesn't sound that hard. You just ignore the bits that don't make any sense. We often always ignore the bits that doesn't make any sense when we're playing these games. We're just like, oh,
True, but I just mean like, I don't know, someone starts off playing an android in like a more fantasy setting, and then somehow they end up in a Starfinder game. I don't know how to do that without it being like fully focused on one person.
Well, you just have them like wait, like they just turn off. Like, what do you mean?
Well, okay, I guess it's doable. It's just like I would like to play a Pathfinder session with that, and then later a Starfinder session with that.
I think that it would be very funny, just so like, you just go to this place and it's like you do like the Pathfinder stuff, and then like you just turn off, and then like the party goes, and in the beginning of like the Starfinder game like reactivates like the Pathfinder android, and it's just like, oh, we're doing this again, like. Yeah. Or it could be like, maybe it could be a time travel thing like the Terminator, like.
Ooh.
Yeah, you could do that. There you go. That one's for free, Calvin. You could just.
All right. So yeah, those are some of the new ancestries, or I guess returning ancestries, I should say, for Starfinder 2nd Edition. There'll be links to those to the Field Test 3 below, so you can go ahead and check them out for yourself. And I would recommend, just giving them a try in the game, or just making a character. 'Cause I'm sure you can make some interesting stuff.
Yeah. Maybe just plop it into your game for a cool one-shot campaign kind of thing. Just like have one of your characters switch out. Be like, how does this feel? Right?
Mm-hmm. All right. So let's take a look at Field Test 4, which features the Envoy class, which is a master influencer and essentially poised to be like the leader of the team. And as I'm looking through the class abilities, like it's very specifically is meant to be the leader, the person in charge, depending on, I don't know if it's meant to be like a field leader sort of thing, but that might depend on your specific table. But it really feels like this is meant to be the captain class.
Yeah, like someone that the team can pivot around, right? Like being able to kind of direct the action, or like provide those, crucial supporting abilities, I would say, right?
Yeah, like it's focused a lot on like buffing allies, debuffing enemies, that sort of thing, and being really good in social encounters. But it also has like specific features that are meant to like direct allies in combat in a way that feels like it's not just a support. It's like I guess I'll get into it. Like, so one thing that envoys come with is directives, which they can give to allies, and it's essentially like you give them some sort of order or strategy, which provide like a benefit to them if your allies follow them. And each directive additionally has an option for it where you can lead by example, which encourages the envoy to get into combat, and it is which is something that the original envoy had issue with until it got an update later into the game. Mm-hmm. So a couple of examples. One of them is Get 'em, which comes back from the previous edition. So essentially with that, you target a creature within, I think, like 60 feet, and it has a -1 on its AC, which, makes it obviously a better target for your allies. And then if you choose to lead by example with that, if you make an attack on that target, then your allies also get a +1 on making attacks to it. Or a +1 on their damage rolls, sorry, I should say.
Oh, cool. So, that's so interesting, because then it's like you have the option to just kind of say, get that guy, and then shoot somebody else. Or like, if you just double up on the actions, it's like a double benefit to your ally.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if your attack has to do damage, but yeah, if you take an action to attack the target, then yeah, you also get that benefit of more damage, sort of encouraging you to get into the fight once it gets started, as opposed to just like staying in the back and shouting orders.
Yeah, I mean, like, I like the idea that you can point out weak spots. You're like, oh yeah, shoot it in the glowing red eye, and you shoot in the glowing red eye, and they're like, oh, okay, I get it, boss. Like,
yeah. I think it's pretty cool. Another one is the Get In There directive, and all of them have like names you would yell out as you're doing them. If you say get in there, you give allies within 100 feet an increase in speed for the round. And then I think that increase can change depending on your level. And the lead by example benefit there is triggered whenever the envoy steps or strides before the end of their turn, which allows their allies to immediately move at half of their speed as a free action, which I thought was interesting wording. If I'm understanding correctly, it's essentially like once you give that directive and then you move, your allies can move at half their speed, but since it's a free action, they don't use their reaction for that round. If I'm understanding the wording of it, which could be pretty powerful to like let everybody move and then they all still have their reactions to do whatever with.
Yeah, well, I mean, it feels like, again, it's like you are the spoke that holds everyone together, maybe. You know, like an envoy on a team is like makes the whole team stronger, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like there's a lot of, I mean, it depends on like your game situation, but I usually feel like most classes, anything can be like whatever requires them to be the leader, because that's more of like a narrative thing decided between the party. But this one, more than anything, is like the person in charge when it comes to combat, or at least the person directing it. But in addition, envoys have leadership styles, which give skills and other perks, like a free feat or some sort of like equipment training at first level. And these are the way the class sort of like splits up in different subclasses. It's based on your leadership style. You also, as an envoy at 6th level, depending on your leadership style, you'll get access to acts of leadership, which, depending on the action you do, it'll give you that lead by example benefit from a directive without doing the specific one that you had to, the specific action, I should say, that would be tied to that directive. So like how with Get 'em, you normally have to do an attack to give everybody else that +1 to damage. Depending on your leadership style, you would do that active leadership, and then everybody gets that +1.
Yeah, like From the Shadows is so funny. It's like, get him, and then you just hide.
That one is pretty cool. That would be a pretty fun combo.
That's so good.
So yeah, with if your leadership style is to lead from the shadows, you point someone out, you say get them, and then you hide, and everybody still gets that +1 to damage.
That's so funny, man.
And yeah, again, like it's different for each one. Like some of them, like you either like like you raise a shield, or you reload your ranged weapon, stuff like that.
Yeah, one of them is like administer first aid, or like do battle medicine, or just heal an ally. Like that's pretty cool too.
Yeah, like because it's again, it's how you want to lead it. It is your leadership style. Are you more of the are you stealthy and hiding? Are you leading from the front? Are you like a battle medic leader? I think it's a cool idea. I'd be interested to see how it plays out at the table. I think it's worth testing in some sort of way.
Yeah.
Or just, looking at other tests. Or I know there's like there's a handful of people out there who have played 2nd edition Starfinder. There's like streams and videos on it. I didn't really go through too many of them because I kind of wanted to just see it for myself, but I might check some of those out because I want to see how the Envoy plays out at the table. And another feature that the Envoy has is the size up ability, which is it feels a bit like a ranger thing. It allows them to research and observe a specific individual and make that individual their asset, which as a basic thing, they get some stuff like a +1 in most charisma-based checks, or all charisma-based checks. But other class feats can sort of expand on what you're able to do when you're dealing with your asset. Similar to the Ranger. The Ranger had a thing for this. I'm just forgetting the name of it.
That one is like Hunt Prey, I think it's called. But that one also gives you the ability to kind of keep track of that thing. Gives you a lot of like charisma-based stuff, but also like sensing-based stuff where it's like, you can follow them and track them and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, there is like a kind of like parallel to the Ranger. Actually, I mean, like it's obviously also a parallel to like the Bard as well. That ability to kind of aid their allies and stuff like that. But yeah, it's kind of like a marrying of the two with a little bit of special ops or like spy kind of thing going on here.
Yeah, it's a little bit like that because you can also like you can observe your actual target, or you can research them on the infosphere. and then assign them as your asset.
Yeah, I love Pardon Me. Pardon Me's funny. All these ones are so funny. Where it's like you get to use your deception instead of an acrobatics to tumble through somebody. Like you just trick them. You're like
You just swoop around them.
Yeah, you tap them on the shoulder and then they turn around and you go the other way. Like, oh, pardon me. Like, that one's really funny.
Yeah, all the class feat names for the Envoy are very dramatic. Like, "Don't you die on me."
Yeah,
where
that was good.
you could just like talk an ally out of dying. You have to be adjacent to them for extra drama, but you can reduce their dying value, and it won't increase their wounded condition if you prevent them from dying.
I love it.
Which is cool.
That's so funny, man. Like, just don't you die on me. Get it together.
Live, damn you.
Live. Oh, man.
And what's the other one? Get your head in the game, where like you scold an ally within 30 feet, and then they can suppress either being fatigued or off guard for a certain amount of time.
I love change of plans too, where it's just like if like your get 'em target gets gotted, right? Like you could just like change it to somebody else. Like you're like, wait, change the plans, get that guy. Like, that's so good. I want to play an Envoy. This sounds so silly. Like,
yeah, I think your character for our Starfinder game from ages ago, I think he'd be a really fun Envoy.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Kato. Yeah, Kato's basically. I forget. I think he was an operative, if I remember.
Yeah, he was an operative. Yeah. He was very. I forget which specific type, but he was more of like a. He was like a very acrobatic kind of operative.
Yeah. He did a lot of tumbling and rolling around, and then getting people like off balance, and then shooting them with a gun. I think that was his cool style. But I think this is fun to do, and maybe in the future I'll just make Kato again and just make him an Envoy, because this is hilarious. Like,
yeah, man, I like a lot of the stuff here. I feel like Starfinder has some really good like feat names.
Yeah, they knocked it out of the park with the feat names. Like almost every one of them I'm like into. I'm like, I can feel the vibes. The vibes are strong in Starfinder.
And yeah, there's a bunch more stuff there. Again, we'll have a link to Field Test 4 below for you to go ahead and check out. So yeah, those are the field test documents, but I did want to take a look at some other Starfinder stuff, because the Starfinder Enhanced book came out at the end of last year, and we did not talk about it at all. I think before it came out, I was under the impression for some reason it was coming out at the beginning of this year. So it was kind of off my radar, and I was kind of focused on like other stuff. But then I saw it, and I was like, wait, because I was looking forward to a couple of things from this book, specifically like the ability to scale equipment with characters, so you don't have to like throw away like a really cool weapon you found and you think it really fits your character, as well as some narrative Starship Combat rules, which I was curious how those would work. I wanted to just get into those specific things. There's a bunch of stuff in the Starfinder Enhanced book that I wanted to go over, but that could be a whole episode on its own, so I just want to focus on these two things. The Narrative Starship Combat, it's meant to be like a simplified version of the Starship Combat present in Starfinder already. Without like, it doesn't use the hex map, it doesn't use all of the ship stats. You don't have to worry about like optimizing your ship customization and all that stuff. Although I will say I did like that, so I wasn't sure how much I would like the narrative style of Starship Combat.
Yeah, that was like when we played. That was like a big draw for me. I was like, oh, we get to design a whole ship. What guns are we gonna put on it? Like where? I'm like, how do we do it? And I definitely have to be the pilot. Like,
yeah. Like, I really enjoyed that, but I guess I could understand why people will find it very complicated. For me personally, at least just for playing, like, I found it was better if people just focused on, like, knowing their specific thing. But I could understand why people would find the overall system complicated. I just personally didn't, but I think that's just because I really liked it.
Yeah, well, it feels like it could be a game all on its own, right? It's kind of like, not tacked on, but it's like, it's almost like you could just run you guys are just the ship people, right? like it's like the whole campaign could just be you guys in the ship, and everyone could just be cool ship people, and you could have a whole story would just you guys being on the ship and never step off of it, right? Like, you know what I mean, in terms of like combat wise, right? That would be kind of actually that would be a pretty cool campaign. Although I think you would kind of lose out on like half the fun stuff about character upgrades and stuff like that. Maybe in the future, Paizo could just put out, this is just the ship book. Like if you just want to do the ship stuff by itself, like here it is.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, like, there is a Starship Operations book, Starship Operations Manual, I think it is. And it has like you could just make your ship campaign. It has like rule variations if you wanted to run either like a squad campaign where everybody has their own individual small starship, which I thought would be very fun. Or you could run like an Armada campaign where you're commanding like multiple starships in large scale combat.
What? What? That's crazy. Yeah, we should just do that. This sounds like a Lancer battle group, but it is probably more fantastic. As fantastic as big ships going brr like could be, right?
Yeah, with literal magic instead of the space sci-fi magic that Lancer has.
Yeah.
But yeah, so as for the Narrative Starship Combat, so it's very simplified. At the start of a round, the GM will choose a tactic for their enemy forces, and then after that, the player crew, like each member, takes an action based on their role on the ship, or like some generic actions that anyone can take, and they all require a skill check. And the enemy will take damage based on the number of player successes for certain skill checks. Like some checks will, obviously do damage, and some of them will make it harder for the enemy ship to do stuff, or make it easier for the player ship to do stuff, that sort of thing.
Right.
And then combat obviously ends whenever, one of the ships takes too much damage, or whatever other situation, like a surrender or escape or that sort of thing.
Oh, okay. So then I guess like it's kind of like a skill challenge or like a clock or something like that with like parameters, right? So then the GM just decides like, oh, they're gonna go like full steam ahead or something like that, and it has XYZ properties.
Yeah, it is basically that. So each ship or each enemy ship, it has a average and a hard DC, and those are the DCs you have to beat when you're doing your skill checks, and those can change in certain situations. Like something can force you to only use the hard DC, where you would normally use the average one. The ships have hit points, which is normally 5 for most ships, and then enemy ships have a threshold, and that number is like the number of successes you need to land a hit. So, for example, like one of the example ships they have, it has a threshold of 3. So the players in all their skill checks, they have to get 3 successes, and crits normally count as 2 successes. They have to get 3 successes to land a hit. And if they land a hit, then the enemy ship has its HP reduced by 1. And again, obviously, you just keep going until either one ship is disabled or the other one is.
Interesting. Cool. Yeah.
So yeah, like I can see why it would be, obviously simpler. The players, like, they still have their roles that exist. They're still captain, chief mate, engineer, gunner, magic officer, pilot, and science officer. Like a lot of the same stuff that already existed. It's just instead of having to know like all of the different elements of the ship, you only really need to know like a handful of numbers. Like you just need to know like the DCs for your ship, whatever skill bonus it might give you. Like if it gives you like a +2 to piloting or whatever, and like the HP of your ship.
That's crazy because like that just takes out it simplifies it to, I mean, what the dice roll will be anyway, but it just removes like positioning and like I guess like to land a really good hit against a ship or do a significant chunk, you probably need to like do all this math with like, okay, I'm going to use the science dude to like lock on or scan this person, and then this gives a +2 to attack, and then like, but still it kind of brings it down to just like, how many successes did you do? Like if you need 3 successes to make this one cool shot happen to do a really significant damage to the ship, then just make it 3 successes equal to like a hit, basically a hit, right? So like damage, like HP is basically, it's literally hit points. like
yeah,
it's pretty cool.
I think it's interesting. Like I think it is interesting. I can see why people would prefer it, and I might want to check out an example of it in play if I can find one. I kind of prefer, I guess I prefer the more complex one, just because I like building the ships.
Building the ships is fun in itself, but I'm glad that there's like an option for people who just want to like run a cool space combat battle, right? It's just like, but they don't want to do all the math and bring out the star map and move the little stuff around. Like, I think there should be, like, especially with like big tabletop RPGs like Pathfinder, like multiple ways to play the game but still have like fun, right? Like, because I'm sure that like GMs would, if they don't want to do it but they still want it, they would just make up their own rules. But I'm just glad that like now there's something that they can like just use, right?
Yeah, like it's available.
Yeah.
Because I was looking at like some of the actions, like the captain they have an action called Enact Cunning Stratagem, where basically like the player can narrate like whatever this is, but all it really requires is that singular skill check that they need to overcome that threshold and do damage. But they can go ahead and describe like, here's my cunning strategy to do damage.
Here's my cunning strategy. We're gonna toss all the cargo. Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Yeah, like if you want to do something silly like that, it's easier to do it here than, I guess, in the more complex version, if you want to focus on a narrative thing. Also, I think I would say it's probably a lot easier for people who are doing like streamed games or podcasts for sure, where you don't have that visual element at all, but you want to communicate something with the audience who's listening. This would definitely be way better because there's no like map to contend with. It's just theater of the mind.
Yeah, and like also I think in-person games too, because sometimes you just don't have the time to run a whole combat like that. Like a lot of times, even in like Pathfinder and stuff like that, like we would do like a narrative combat where, you know, it's like, I'm not going to draw a map. I'm not going to say, I just say like, you know, you have to spend an action to move if you want to get into melee or something like that. Like, I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritties of like positioning and things like that. I've definitely I just made my own rules for narrative-based combat by still like, you know, not doing the whole on the grid thing. So like I said, I'm just glad that Paizo's just like, here are just the rules like for it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I think it works well for Starship stuff because it's already like something in addition on Starfinder.
Yeah.
So you can really just like attach whichever rules that you want.
Yeah, and it's such like a grand scale Starship combat that it usually feels like I always bring it to like video games where it's like an action set piece a lot of the time where it's like, you know, you're doing the cutscene or like it's like a different, like you're playing like Mass Effect or something like that, or maybe not Mass Effect, like Halo, right? Like Halo does this all the time. Where like now is the vehicle part, right? Like you get to fly your spaceship and do this cool stuff, right? So I like, and it's just like a different. You're still rolling dice, you're still having fun with your friends, but it's just kind of like different from the regular stuff that you're doing, like a break, right? It's kind of like how I feel about Lancer, where it's like there's two modes, where it's just like narrative mode and the crunch. Like it's like the softer, more flexible narrative mode, and like the crunchier, like we're in mech combat mode, right?
Yeah, it depends on what you need to measure and which one you need a battle map for. Something else that I really liked from the Starfinder Enhanced book is scaling equipment. And it just gives you like guidelines for like how to scale equipment with a character's level, like what sort of damage dice it might have and how much it would cost to level up that equipment. And I just thought that was really interesting because Starfinder has a lot of really cool gear, and I can see why someone would want to like hang on to something as they play through the game. I feel like maybe with a fantasy game, maybe I'm just more used to that concept of just like, I can get rid of this thing, I can sell it, and I can buy something more interesting, because that's a very video gamey way to look at it. But Starfinder has like a lot of really cool gear, and I can see why someone would want something like iconic to stick with.
I would think that it makes more sense in the Starfinder setting because everything's technology based, right? Like why not just slap on like a new capacitor or whatever on your laser rifle so now pew pew stronger, right? That makes more sense versus like I have a magic sword and I made it more magic, like.
Yeah.
Right. That one is kind of tougher to kind of swing, even though I still think that that's still within like the vibe of like the fantasy setting. It's like you could just magic up your sword more, bro. Like that's totally fine, and I often just use that stuff anyway. But yeah, I think that like having a cool, essentially upgrade tree for your equipment, that sounds kind of cool. like
I think it's really interesting. If people want to look at the more specifics on the charts, they can go check those out in the Starfinder Enhanced book. But something I did see as I was looking through this is that it gives you guidelines for like creating a custom item. And I thought that looked really cool. So I kind of went through and I made a custom item that I think I just want to cover, and then we'll close out the episode because I don't know when I'm going to get to use this. I need to be in a Starfinder game. But so yeah, I was looking at the scaling equipment rules, and I just saw some guidelines on creating an item. So I thought, I'll give it a try. And Ramon, I don't know if you've seen Spectre, the James Bond movie.
No, I have not. So you're not.
Okay.
I have no reference to what you're about to show me.
Okay, so there is a certain henchman in that particular James Bond movie, played by Dave Bautista. And, he's a big guy. He does all the big guy punches. Typical James Bond henchman fare. But he also has this pistol. And it's like this double barrel pistol.
What? Why do you need a double-barreled pistol?
I don't know. But it really stuck in my head.
It only takes one bullet to kill a person. and like it's double, so when the bullets shoot, they're not even going to like... Wait, is it side by side or like vertical?
It's like side by side.
It's even worse. It's gonna be off when you aim at somebody. All right, tell me about your double-barreled pistol.
Yeah, obviously a weapon like that just got really into my head. So I had to make something similar. So I came in with the concept of this double-barrel pistol. I chose to make it second level. So when you're creating a custom item like a weapon, as you're making it, you have something called build points. And the number of build points you have is based on the item's level. And you can use those build points for like perks, where if you want to add different like features to your weapon. So I started this one at second level, and I chose to make it a small arm, obviously because it's a pistol. So with the charts available, when you start with something at second level, it starts with a damage die of 1d6, and you get 2 build points to use. And then you can change the weapon type. You have like your melee weapons, your heavy weapons. With a small arm, like a pistol, it comes with certain features as well. So like it's one-handed weapon, it has a range of 30 feet, it has a bulk of light, but you also reduce the damage die by 1 step. And then from the type, you can go into like adding flaws or perks. And again, perks you spend build points on. Flaws are some, again, like there's like a flaw with your weapon. But if you take a flaw, you add a build point. Mm-hmm. So looking at the weapon as designed, I chose to make it cumbersome, which makes the weapon a little heavier because it looks pretty heavy because it's a double-barrel pistol. And similarly, I also made it unwieldy, which means that it can't be used for like a full attack. Like you can't shoot it twice in a turn.
But you can, right? Because it's two barrels. Like
I'm kind of picturing both of the bullets firing at the same time.
Again, like what? All right, keep going. Like
it was. I was deciding either unwieldy or ammo hog, which is kind of what inspired the thought of this weapon in the first place. Because ammo hog doubles the weapon's usage, so like whenever you use the weapon, it uses 2 of whatever ammunition you have in it. I was kind of leaning towards that one more, honestly, because I feel like it made sense for what this weapon is. But yeah, I think I ended up with using unwieldy. And then, so that gave me a bunch of build points I could use for perks. I essentially had 4 points that I could spread around. So I spent 2 points on making it destructive, which increases the weapon damage die by 1 step, so it's back at a d6. I added extended range for 1 point because I was looking at a clip of the movie, and he seemed to have really good range with this pistol, shooting it out of a moving car into a moving plane that James Bond was flying really low to the ground, so it made sense to me.
Okay.
And then I spent the last point on making it reliable, which is similarly to reliable and Lancer. The way this one works is if you roll a 1 on the damage die, it actually instead gives you the average value for that die.
Oh, okay.
Like since its damage die is a d6, if you roll a 1 on that d6, you get a 3 instead.
So like the worst value you could actually roll is a 2? Like that's so weird. I kind of like it though, but like that's so funny, man.
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't just go for like instead of a 1 you just get a 2, but I do also kind of like the different damage die give you different values, and it sort of scales the damage weirdly in a way that I would like to test out. So again, if I hop in a Starfinder game, maybe I'll make an Envoy or some other, or make it like a Vesk character, and I'll give him this pistol and see what happens.
I feel like Vesk probably have some ability to wield like unwieldy pistols real good because they're just chunkers. Like, watch. And then, like, you just made like the most ultimate. You just basically just made like Vesk Dave Bautista. Like, maybe that's why his gun has 2 barrels, because he's just so strong. Like, he's like, whatever. Like,
That'd be fun.
what? But like, I don't know. It's very funny. Okay, that's really cool, actually.
Yeah, I think it's a really absurd weapon, so I just had to make it.
I hope that they do. I know they did like scaling weapons in Pathfinder, like in the Dungeon Master's Guide or the Game Master's Guide. I'm hoping that like they continue that, or like maybe update that, or do use this design in the GM's Guide, or like the remaster.
Oh yeah. Like, I would love to see an expansion on this with more perks and flaws you can get.
Oh yeah, for sure. That would be sick.
Because like they have some good options here, but like it's not a whole lot. But each one of them I think is interesting. So I want to see more stuff like this. I want to see more custom gear options.
Yeah, and you can make like the goofiest sci-fi weapons, like you know, like that would be crazy. And it's all like to the players' like nonsense brains. Like, oh yeah, I find this this gun fires a smaller gun that then fires a bullet, right? Like,
yeah, like it sort of encourages you to come up with like weird stuff like that, and then just figure out like, well, what's the type of damage it does, and then just work from there.
Exactly, just work backwards, right? Like, obviously, like.
Yeah, I think it'd be really cool. I do want to, like, if other people have tried using this book to make a custom weapon, I would love to hear about it. You know, either in the comments below if you're on YouTube, or just hit us up on social media otherwise. But yeah, that is all the Starfinder stuff I wanted to cover for today. So yeah, I'm looking at these things, and I'm really, on the one hand, I'm really looking forward to, like, Starfinder 2nd Edition. And on the other hand, I feel like there's a lot of interesting stuff going on with Starfinder already, because we only talked about Starfinder mechs like once.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other thing.
There's like a whole bunch of stuff, right? Like Starfinder's like our big fleshed out, I was going to say AAA tabletop RPG, pretty much, right? Like,
I'd say so.
It's the second to D&D's first, right? So Paizo's got a lot of stuff cooking in the oven, and definitely I am loving all of the transition stuff, I guess, like all the new stuff that's coming out. I mean, it's like, you know, Starfinder's cool, but the 2E game design is like way cooler than Pathfinder 1. And again, a lot more separation from its roots of like being a D&D clone, right? So
yeah, exactly. It like I am really looking forward to doing this playtest. I'm really looking forward to putting the peanut butter and the chocolate together, because Starfinder itself, like the 1st edition, while I think it was better than Pathfinder 1st edition in some ways, it still like brings a lot of stuff from there, right? Mm-hmm. So currently Pathfinder 2nd edition is pretty much my favorite game to run. I'm sorry to all the Lancer people out there.
GG, you broke their hearts.
No. I'm sorry, but it's been my favorite game to run for a long time. I have some long running campaigns in it, and Starfinder has been one of my favorite settings to just like check out. And I've been really wanting to get back into Starfinder. I feel like like coming off of like playing a lot of Mass Effect lately as well. I've been really wanting to do something Starfinder-ish. So I feel like marrying the two is going to be a whole lot of fun for me. I think Starfinder 2E is going to become my favorite game.
Yeah, that's for sure. I'm stoked to see you do it, and you know, probably play the game you're gonna run. Like, more than
I mean,
likely.
for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, the playtest will be out summer 2024. I want to say August, but I'm not entirely sure that's correct. It'll be around Gen Con, so let's just say August for now. All right. Well, thanks a ton, everybody out there, for listening. If you are into Starfinder, if you've played Starfinder recently, or if you've checked out some of the many awesome like Starfinder AP streams and podcasts, either drop a comment about it below or hit us up on the socials. We're on Twitter, we're on Blue Sky, we're on Facebook. We have a website where you can go ahead and leave a comment. The website is in the process of being updated. If it seems a little out of date, that's my bad, but if you message us there, we'll see it. I want to make sure to shout out all the people we have linked below on the YouTube description. If you're into the Lancer RPG, there's a whole bunch of Lancer writers and creators who are linked below. You can go ahead and check out their stuff. As well, I want to shout out to the Untold Stories project, also linked below, where I'm going to be on Wednesdays going forward with the Freedom League Dart game continuing, as well as every other Thursday playing in Plain Gia. I think we're coming to a head on that story sometime soon, or very soon, I should say. And like I said at the top, we are on new platforms now. We're on Spotify and Amazon and Apple and a whole bunch of other ones. So some adjustments are being made behind the scenes as we're getting used to those things. But again, to all the new listeners out there, thanks for stopping by and giving us a try. Okay, anything else to say before we head off?
Yeah, I think we're good to go, Chief.
All right. Well, for all of our spacefaring GMs and players out there, just remember to keep on winning with dice, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.